Hello, hello. Welcome back. It's been a while since I've made a video. I have been on the road, if you will, a lot of traveling around. So we got a lot to catch up on. I'll try to keep it within a reasonable amount of time for myself. I didn't journal as well as I could have recently. But we can just give a high level of some of the highlights that happened since my last video. And yeah, let's dive right into it. So since my last video, the total closed P&L was about $10,800 profit for about a month, and that wasn't without some drawdowns. So in the breakdown was drawdown into much more profit. Kind of following what the market did, but my portfolio swung a lot more than the market did. We can dive right into the first week, which is November 10th that week, I think. And this is more for like reflecting on some things. Obviously, this isn't as relevant to what's happening now because this was a month ago, but I do want to walk through a couple trades that happened that week. So on the week of the 10th, I ended the week down about $4,000. So my P&L on this week, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, minus $4,000. So what exactly happened there? The biggest loss from that week was closing a losing position on Bloom Energy. So I had sold some puts on Bloom Energy previously in the previous week, I think, because I was like, oh, it's compressing nicely. And then it kind of fell off a cliff here. I was expecting to compress and go up, and instead it broke the 50-day or the 20-day and all the way down to the 50-day. And I closed my position. I cut my losses, which seemed like the right thing to do at the time, because if I didn't, I could have been down even more given how far it dipped. And then had I continued holding, if I got assigned on those puts, look how low it got, $76 all the way from $131. It's a 50% move. So I cut my losses in here, and I booked a $4,500 loss on Bloom Energy on the puts that I sold. Yeah, that was the biggest loss of that week. And yeah, I definitely got a little aggressive there. It's one of the dangers of playing with the very high volatility stocks is they have high volatility. If it moves in the wrong direction, then you're kind of sitting on some bad news. Also, the previous week, I think in my last video, NBIS was like one of my biggest losers in the previous video. That was up in this November week, right here. And I posted the video this weekend, the weekend of the 7th. I think it was November 9th. And then it was really great that I cut those losses because look what NBIS did. It just sold. And this is a pretty big move. This is 116 down to 81. So had I not cut my losses in the previous week, I would be down. This would be like another $5,000 loss right here. And it hasn't recovered back to where it was on the week that I exited. So that was a really great decision to get out of a stock that was no longer supporting my trade plan. And this stock still hasn't recovered to the 50-day moving average even. So I wouldn't be looking at the stock right now. All right, moving on to the next week, because just highlight something a little bit every day or for every week. This is the week of the 17th now. So 17th through the 21st. All right. So on this week, I booked a closed P&L of minus $1,500 or so. So at this point, I'm at minus $5,500 in like closed P&L. And so what exactly happened this week? Well, in this week, my portfolio actually went down to the lowest it's been since October. I was giving back some October gains at this point, particularly because of Robinhood. So I had a really large position on Robinhood. I was definitely oversized, and I cut my losses here on Monday when I was like, okay, if it's not bouncing off the 100-day, then I will get out. And Monday it sold through the 100-day, and I exited for an $8,900 loss. Closed P&L. So I closed the trade completely. I was for sure oversized. I think I had I don't even know how many shares, 400 shares of Robinhood. And to some extent, like I'm not unhappy with the fact that I exited, because you see it continued selling down, and I would have been really, really in pain when it hit 102. You know, it's a pretty big difference there. But regardless, the worst part of this trade was my sizing on it, and the sizing really killed me compared to the size and other positions that I've taken. That's just really, really large. And yeah, at this point, I've bought back in a little bit. It's come back above some support. We'll get into that as we come to this week's summary. But we're still in the week of the 17th. So how did I book only a $1,500 loss on the week of the 17th if I lost $8,900 in Robinhood? Well, we go to our trusty friend Google. So for Google, I really like this stock. I think I added some more leaps in here and in here, and then when Google bounced really nicely on the 19th and the 20th, I took a whole bunch of profit out. And so I ended up with like a $5,000 gain on my options in Google. And then I sold another $3,000 worth of premium on various other things. So that recovered the week back up to almost a break even. So it was really nice. Additionally, I was adding some, we're going to the following week now. I added some calls in here because I still really like Google. This was on news. I think these candles were after Berkshire Hathaway announced their stake in Google. And so I was like, okay, they're still going to be buying. I still want to get in this. I just booked a short-term profit. I want to get back in more. So I bought some more calls following the pullbacks here. And then Monday, on this Monday, the following week, I booked a really huge gain. So we're getting to this week now. Not this week. Last week. Thanksgiving week. So it was a short week. I didn't take a lot of active trades, but because of the Google position I had open, I booked a really, really large profit for the week of the 24th. I think I closed $14,000 of profit on Thanksgiving week. Most of it was on Google. I think it was 12.7K in Google off of this one gap up. And now you're probably thinking, oh, why didn't you hold it more? Well, I don't know. Got a little scared, I guess. Profit's profit. Because, it's out the upper Bollinger. Could I have held it for another day? At least taken partials out and then held maybe 2 or 3 contracts for another day? Yes, absolutely. It could have. Probably could have made another couple $1,000s. But it's a really nice win. And I've just kind of been waiting to get back in because I figured at this point there's going to be a pullback for sure. And there has been. I added some contracts here. Added a contract there. And we're kind of getting to a point where if we're breaking out of this controlled selling, where it's kind of compressing, pull back in time sort of thing, maybe we could send up to 330 this week. We'll see. There's a lot of components that can go into this. We could also very easily pull back down to 300. Total possibility. I could go either way. But regardless, as long as it's holding within this daily channel, I think we're fine. So for this week, this past week, the first week of December, I closed with a $2,100 gain. Overall, the best gain was from Robinhood. So I had re-entered around the 112 area, somewhere back in here, 113, and I sold the 120 call. So I didn't get quite as much profit as I could have, but I got excited for like a $1,200 profit. Not bad. And I've sold some puts going into next week down at the 125 level, and it's like right around the 10-day moving average. It could pull back there. I think I would be okay owning the stock at 125 given what it looks like support around this area. So yeah, and then the other portion of the profit from last week came from selling premium as usual. Yeah, that's it's kind of the high level summary of what's the main things that have happened in the last couple of weeks. Basically booked some large losses which were overridden by even larger gains. And I think some of my positioning on the worst stocks could be a lot better, as in like smaller position size, and build the position instead of just like entering with a really large position, like how I'm doing with Google, where I'm like buying some leaps over time and building a larger position. And Google's also just like a stock that I understand a lot more. Yeah, so I guess lesson is sizing is super important in order to not lose all your money. Yeah, going into this week, we have the Fed. The Fed is the biggest thing that's happening this week. We're kind of just floating higher. My thought is, how do I stay nimble in the event that the Fed triggers a bunch of really nasty selling, like the market really doesn't like it? What am I going to do? How do I position myself so that I'm not hurt by it? And so I'm just trying to stay agile, be ready to exit if I need to. And yeah, so my open positions, I guess I'll cover. I have some shares of Bloom Energy because it's recovered pretty nicely. I have a 125 strike price call expiring next week. So if it gets there, I'll be really happy to exit for a nice profit. I also sold some puts down at the 105 level. Again, this is a very volatile stock. So in the event that it reverses for whatever reason, I'll be sad and I'll exit. But it looks like there's a lot of support at this level. It's above anchored VWAP at earnings. It's above the 5, 10, 20, 50-day moving averages. So it looks like there's a lot of support around here, and I'm okay with where it's at right now. Also, like I said, I sold some puts on Hood, and I have a couple of puts that I sold on Intel at the 39 strike. And I have the 40 strike price puts on iron at expiring not this Friday, but the following Friday, the 19th. Yeah, I've been eyeballing Morgan Stanley after it hit all-time highs somewhat recently, but it's kind of floated higher to an extent where I don't really want to do anything to it yet until it has a pullback. I think on a pullback, I would either buy or I'd sell some puts. The premium isn't as high in the stock, so maybe do like a debit spread or something. Look for a bounce. But yeah, this is pretty interesting given how strong this is. Also been eyeballing Sienna Corporation for selling more premium. The premium on the stock is pretty good, and it seems to have held pretty strongly recently. Yeah. Well, regardless of what happens next week, it's a journey. There's not a true destination. It's just an ongoing process. Get better every day, every week, every month. If you found this video at all enjoyable, I don't really know what the the benefit of this video is for all of y'all watching. This is more a reflection on my part. But maybe this ending was helpful to you to get some perspective on what I'm thinking. Although I'm everything with a grain of salt, of course. Do your own research, do your own diligence. I wish you the best of luck trading, and yeah, I'll see you next time. Peace.